Good evening, and I know it is evening, it's a bit late, but I'm still here with our tip number 13. Now, it's a subject that I didn't really want to discuss, but then I thought, why not? Because it is part of life. So the subject for today is alone, but not lonely. And it talks about how we are accustomed to filling the eeriness of silence with fluff. We're always trying to stay busy, right? So that we won't be thinking about ourselves so much. It says we use all these many distractions to escape feelings of idleness or boredom. But mainly, the thing that we're wishing to elude is loneliness. Now, there's a difference between solitude, being alone, and loneliness. And as far as loneliness, it says the death of a loved one or the inability to find people who understand you that can leave you feeling isolated or lonely. And Webster's dictionary plainly describes loneliness as being without companions. It says it's natural to experience an emptiness while longing for love or acceptance. Hello, everybody who's out there. Hi, Angela and Angel. And so it says loneliness is being without companions. It's natural to experience an emptiness while longing for love or acceptance. And it says loneliness, therefore, is an emotive state or an emotional state that can be experienced whether or not one is physically alone. So you can be in a crowd of people and still feel lonely. I know when I used to go to New York, I used to travel there quite a bit, and that city is buzzing all the time. But I'm sure there were quite a few people in there, even though among all these people, but they were lonely inside. Okay. And it was this Archbishop of Canterbury, Geoffrey Fisher. He said, in cities, no one is quiet, but many are lonely. In the country, people are quiet, but few are lonely. So we can understand that because people are just not connected when they're in the big cities and just buzzing around, right? They're not connected with one another, they're just there. But in the country, like it says, it's more quiet. People know each other more, they're more connected to each other. And it says to fill loneliness with all types of distractions, what some single men and women do. They would rather spend a Friday night with someone who they're not really interested in rather than to be alone, right? Well, we know that does happen, right? And then it says even young people, they rather get involved in a gang or in cliques where they can't really relate to their companions, but they would rather do that on a superficial level than to be like an outcast or to be alone or lonely, right? So it asks the question, what is it about being alone that scares us though? So lonely is different from being in solitude or alone. So why do we not like to be alone? It says it's mainly because of the unfamiliarity of silence. It's the quietness in our mind when we're not being distracted. So that's uncomfortable to us. But it says silence can be an amazing thing because it teaches us to listen to ourselves, to inside. And it says it's only when you pay attention to what's going on inside of you, when you're alone, where you have the space and the peace to think about without being influenced by other people. So it's much better for us to be alone and think and be with ourselves than to always have other people around us who influence us. It says it becomes easier to make important decisions and identifying whatever feelings you have inside when you're alone thinking by yourself. It says, so getting in touch with yourself so that you can make conscious decisions rather than simply react to emotions. So it's much better to be by yourself, connecting with yourself, and just to always react to emotions, okay? Because you learn to identify those emotions. Like we did in our first tip that I gave, it says learn to identify your emotions and put them in a certain category. You will understand them better, and then you won't be scared of them because you get to know them and how they make you feel, and you get to know how you're feeling at a certain time, right? So it says, appreciate the time that you have to yourself, because it'll equip you better to deal with all this noise in the world, right? Like even the other day when we talked about finding the peace, we know it's inside of us, it's already there, but we just don't see it because we have all this fluff, all these distractions on top of that peace, right? Because we're kind of scared of it, but if we get to know it and get more inside of ourselves, we won't be afraid, because we get to know it, we get to know ourselves, right? So I hope that was helpful. I started not to talk about it, but then I said, no, I'm involved in it, I need it, so perhaps someone out there needs it too. So maybe it's good for you to think about being alone or lonely, and that it's okay to be alone with yourself, with your thoughts, with that silence, to get to know you better, okay? And sometimes, yeah, we may be lonely for someone, and that's okay too, okay? So that was tip number 13, and I know it was late today, so sorry about that, but I'll be back tomorrow with number 14. So hope you have a good rest of the evening, and take care of yourself.